Hi students, I thought it would be fun this week if you had a PowerPoint where I talked over it and gave you a lecture. I guess fun is a relative term, but today we're going to talk about how to improve your introductions. This is going to be incredibly important for writing your essays. Let's see. Okay, slide 2. Bear with me, I'm dealing with new technology. Okay, so this is a cartoon that I've shared with you because I think it's hilarious. Okay, here we go. Here's a cartoon I've shared with you. This is deeply ironic. I don't know if you know Calvin and Hobbes. The reason that it's funny for me, and it should be funny for all of you, is that academic writing is not supposed to be impossible to understand. It's actually supposed to be clear, and that's what you need to do in your introductions, is work on your clarity. So here's a motivational quote I'm going to share with you. It's none of their business that you have to learn to write. Let them think you were born that way. From Ernest Hemingway, a famous American writer. The Sun Also Rises, The Old Man and the Sea, all that stuff that you've probably read in high school English. So the reason that I've shared this quote with you is to dispel the myth that writing is something that just happens and that good writing is something that people are born with. There are lots of skills that you yourself can learn and apply to things like your introductions to make you a better writer. So on to introductions. What does a good introduction need to accomplish? Well, I've created a list for you of the 5 main tasks of an introduction. Introducing the topic, providing some sort of background so you can situate your reader in what kind of argument you're making, identifying your main idea, which is your thesis or your claim, capturing readers' attention, so drawing us into what you are writing about, and previewing the structure of the rest of your essay. So that's a lot, right? What I thought we'd do is I'm going to apply these 5 steps to a truly badass piece of writing, and I say that because I wrote it. So calm down, it's going to be really academic. Slide 7, whoo, lots of text. So this is the beginning of an academic journal article that I wrote about Huck Finn and Shakespeare's work, such as Hamlet and Richard III. So I won't read it to you. You can take a minute to read it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to break it down sentence by sentence, and then we're going to consider whether or not each sentence accomplishes the task that it's set out to do, which is based on the 5 tasks that I told you an introduction needs to accomplish. So don't worry if you haven't finished reading it. I'm going to take it a lot slower, piece by piece. Okay, the first thing an introduction needs to do is introduce what the topic is. So the sentence I have here is, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is filled with overt references to William Shakespeare's works, including Romeo and Juliet, Richard III, and Hamlet. Overt means direct and very clear. It also means something intentional. So the topic at hand is going to be The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, the book by Mark Twain, and William Shakespeare's books, right? So when you look at this, the topic is relatively clear. I probably could have done a better job with this, but it's a good example. Task 2, what's the thesis or main idea? Mark Twain's relationship with Shakespeare is a vexed one and is emblematic of the American literary canon's relationship with its English counterpart. Again, fancy words. Vexed means sort of difficult, fraught, you know, not good, complicated. It's the Facebook status, it's complicated. That's what vexed means. And emblematic just means it represents. It's similar to the way American literary studies feels about English literary studies. So, my thesis. Mark Twain's relationship to Shakespeare is weird, sometimes negative, and it has a bigger meaning, which is that American literature's relationship to English literature is also weird and kind of negative. So that's the thesis or main idea. All right, task 3, providing some kind of general necessary background info. Remember, I am writing to people with PhDs in literature, specifically American literature, So they have some background to this. I would probably change my approach if I were writing to a 1303 or 1304 class. So, Twain was both inspired by Shakespeare and frustrated by him. He references Shakespeare in his published works, brainstorms about him in notes, disavows his authorship, and parodies him. So this is just letting our reader know, or my reader know, that there's some kind of relationship between these two authors. I'm not just writing about them on a whim, and that there's kind of a history relating the two authors, Shakespeare and Mark Twain. So another version of task 3 is I'm providing more necessary background info, really specific background info. So now I'm just talking about not only Mark Twain and Shakespeare having some sort of literary relationship, but specifically which works Twain is dealing with of Shakespeare's, and even of the works, this Act 3, Scene 1 soliloquy, which is someone speaking to the audience by themselves, that Huck performs in chapter 21. So I'm getting even more specific, that there is sort of this general idea. I'm comparing Hamlet to Huckleberry Finn, and in Hamlet, this Act 3, Scene 1 passage. Now again, I'm not testing you on whether or not you understand my paper. I'm just going over how my intro paragraph attempts to take on all of these tasks that an introduction needs to take on. So moving on to 4, get the reader's attention. So in literary studies, in a literary journal, I mean an academic literature journal, this is considered an attention getter because we are all boring, dull professors. So I say, whoa, other people have dealt with this topic, but no one does it the way I do it. Stay tuned for more. That's really what's happening. You guys, because you're writing for a more general audience, should be much more interesting. You've got to make a regular college student care about what you're writing. And last but not least, you're going to preview the essay structure. So I say, all right, this paper is going to review the criticism, then do a close reading, and consider what this shows us. So I've broken down my paper already for you into 3 sections based on this sentence. And that's something that you need to do as well. So here are some questions I'd like you guys to consider. I'm going to share a screenshot of this with you so that you can respond to it after you've seen this lesson. This is a little preview of what you'll be doing. And in review, the 5 things an introduction must do. Introduce the topic clearly. Provide necessary background information. Identify your main idea. Capture the reader's attention. And lastly, it needs to preview the rest of your essay. So for number 4, I said that I didn't do as good a job at this as I could have done, right? I said it was, for an academic audience. But had I been writing for a more general audience, I could have used any of these devices: quotation, definition, question, problem, statistics, comparison, metaphor, simile, surprise, summary, and anecdote. You should try to use some of these things when you are writing your introduction. And I'll also send you a screenshot of this particular handout so you don't have to rush to copy it down. So one example of a way to capture readers' attention, see I've just talked about this, is problem. You see it's the 4th bullet point on the left-hand column. So what I'm trying to do is getting my readers' attention by pointing out a problem, that there's sort of a lack of this type of scholarship in a reader that a reader would be interested in filling in. So that's my presentation. I'm going to send you the screen caps, and I hope you enjoyed reading some of my very academic work. I hope it wasn't too boring. Cheers.